The Republic of Congo's $2,029 bond jumps by as much as 7 cents after the country transferred funds to make an overdue payment on the issue. South Sudan plans to ask China for a $1.9 billion loan for infrastructure development. And in Europe, Eurostar rail workers to take 7 days of strike action in a dispute over their work-life balance. Good afternoon and welcome to Business Incorporated, coming to you live from Lagos. I'm Chimezi Obi Iwago. We'll begin in Europe. Eurostar rail workers are to take 7 days of strike action this month on a dispute over their work-life balance. Our staff will work out from about midnight on the 12th of August until about midnight on August the 15th, and for 3 days over the bank holiday weekend from 27th August. The union says the dispute is over on social hours and duty rosters for about 80 train managers. Eurostar said all passengers with reservations will be able to travel. Now let's look at the global markets, beginning with Europe. Ulrich Bertz, DWTV Channels TV correspondent, joins me now from the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Good afternoon, Ulrich. Now, the market in Frankfurt is not moving very much today. Looking at the DAX there behind you, it seems to be treading water, but at quite a high level. What do you attribute that to, and is it sustainable?
It's attributable to the hope of the investors that the central banks will step in and assuage any problems that might crop up, growth problems, deficit problems, external shocks like terrorist attacks, for example. And people have gotten signals.
All seem to have
Bank of England, they're hoping to go ahead and tighten interest rates, at least not in a very stringent way this year. So that's what's really behind shares catching up. The DAX reached an annual high yesterday, higher than at the beginning of the year, and all those in-between shocks which sent the market spiraling towards the beginning of the year and also had some shocks in the middle of the year. That seems to be forgotten when you look at the DAX on the big board behind me. An annual high yesterday. Today the DAX is losing, but it's still tugging quite close to that annual high. Is it sustainable? I think a lot of people here have doubts on that, because at the same time they say, the share prices have been rising, some by quite a deal, some individual shares by quite a bit, but on very low volume. And they say that very little money is flowing into the market, but even less is flowing out. That's the reason the shares are climbing. And that's a rather fragile base for a sustainable high.
Now, talking about the EU and, of course, intervening in the budget deficit. Now, the European Union has formally agreed to waive fines for Spain and Portugal over their excessive budget deficit, and has given each country more time to conform to the rules and bring their deficits down. What reactions are you getting out there concerning this?
I think it's a mixed bag. It's a very controversial decision. There are lots of people here in the market who said to the EU Commission before it came to this, don't do that. It sets a bad example. Look at countries that are in much more important, let's say, overall to the stability of the European Monetary Union, like France or Italy. They also have budget problems. If they get spiraling higher and higher, then we really have a problem. So make an example with countries like Portugal and Spain. On the other hand, of course, the EU Commission, seeing that these two smaller economies are still in trouble, unemployment is still really, really high, and fines would be pouring oil into the fire and make recovery even more difficult. It's really no good answer to the problem that was at hand here.
Now let's take a look at what's happening with the rail workers. That's Eurostar. They are threatening to take 7 days of strike action this month in what they describe as a dispute over their work-life balance. I wonder what that is. Now, is this something the market is concerned about?
It's not concerned about it, really. People here are commenting similar as you to the reason for the strike, work-life balance. A lot of people who work here would like to have a work-life balance but don't have it because of the amount that they're working here. But having said that, people don't expect a major disruption for any economy, either France or Britain or the stock market there. And because management has also promised not to disrupt travel, really, they're basically guaranteeing passengers even a very big effect on Eurostar itself.
Well, we'll keep a tab on that story and, of course, get to understand what this work balance is just all about. Thank you very much for your time, Ulrich Batz. Now we'll move on now to the U.S. market. The S&P 500 continues to hit new intraday highs as economic data improves in the U.S. And with an update on the U.S. markets is Jill Maladrino, VOA Channel's TV business correspondent, reporting from the NASDAQ market site in New York Stock Exchange.
Stocks open higher on Wall Street, although we've come in just a bit following the S&P 500 touching new highs. You can see the three major averages are flat at this point, but the highs extend from last Friday's bounce after the better-than-expected monthly jobs report, as the major averages look to make more new time highs this week. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ Composite each touched all-time closing highs, up 0.9% and 1.1% respectively to close out the week. It was the first closing record in more than a year for the NASDAQ. Crude oil futures rallied after reports that several members of OPEC are pushing for a deal to freeze production to boost prices. Members including Venezuela, Ecuador, and Kuwait are now pushing for fresh talks on setting new limits for oil production in a bid to push prices higher by constricting the amount of oil they release to the market, considering that the oil supply glut is so high in the world right now. Delta Airlines computer systems crashed on Monday, leaving passengers of one of the world's largest carriers stranded at airports around the globe as flights were grounded. The company said systems are down due to a power outage in Atlanta, where the airline is based. This happened on the overnight, and that's its information technology team is working to resolve this problem. There are a few flights that have now taken off since then. In M&A news, Steinhoff International Holdings agreed to buy Mattress Firm Holding for about $2.4 billion, paying $64 per share. This is more than double Friday's $29.74 closing price. That's a huge premium here. Walmart Stores is buying Jet.com in a deal worth $3.3 billion after reports have been pouring in about the bid all last week. The deal for Jet comes as big brand companies and retailers are trying to compete against the all-out assault on their businesses from Amazon.com. This is one of the largest ever acquisitions of an e-commerce company. Let's look to the trading week ahead. Economic data will be light until Friday, when the consumer sentiment and retail sales reports will take the spotlight following the robust non-farm payrolls report that we had last Friday. Analysts will be looking to see if the strong employment data is translating into increased consumer discretionary spending. The earnings calendar starts to wind down as only 24 companies of the S&P 500 are scheduled to report quarterly earnings. This includes Tyson Foods, Allergan, and News Corp. According to S&P Global Market Intelligence, the consumer discretionary sector has been the top performer in terms of earnings growth rate, while energy is showing the biggest declines, but an improvement from first quarter results. Overall, the earnings beat rate is in line with the historic average of 65%. From the NASDAQ market site in Times Square, I'm Jill Malandrino for Channels TV.
Now we'll take a quick break. When we return, the program continues.